call meeting to order and call for roll call.
Hey, Chair Malone,
Here.
Committee Member Lee,
Here.
Committee Member Petzold,
He's from home.
I don't see him signed in yet, but I'll
Okay.
keep an eye out.
I'm sure he will be soon.
Committee Member Becker,
Present.
Committee Member Myron,
Here.
Committee Member Huber,
Here.
Committee Member Mayton,
Present.
Committee Member Smallwood,
Here.
Committee Member Sheldon,
Happy to be here.
Committee Member Walker,
Thrilled to be here.
Committee Member Exner,
I'm just here.
Committee Member Hoganson,
I'm here with Carl.
and Committee Member Bullion.
Here.
Okay, next item on the agenda is approval of minutes. Were there any errors in the minutes? Approval of minutes?
I'll second.
Moved by, the mind is gone. And seconded by Stan, that we will approve the minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Okay, then it's carried. Public comment. Anyone wishing to speak under public comment on items on the? See anyone?
Everybody online?
Anybody online?
We only have staff members.
Okay, we will move on to any general comments from. We'll do the public hearing on utilization of state shared revenues. Although I think what we're gonna do the transit first.
We shuffled up a couple of the slides, so I think we can just hold the public hearing for state shared revenue.
Okay.
That'll close out general fund entirely
All righty, let's
after
do
the
that.
future discussion.
Okay. So
But there's no one here, so.
We-
close the public hearing.
I'll open the public hearing on utilization of state shared revenues, and I'll close the hearing on utilization of state shared revenues. Now we'll move on to the proposal. Hello, Jeremy, you
Sorry, I'm here.
welcome. Okay, we're gonna move on to the rest of the budgets that we need to look at. Or in order to get to approval of the budget for 23-24.
So tonight is for transit, Sandy Net, and then the utility funds. I think Tyler has a few miscellaneous, right?
Yep.
Parks capital is a big one. And then the aquatic fund.
So we'll just jump right into the Aquatic Recreation Center Fund. This fund was created a few biennium ago to account for and track all the revenue and expenditures related to the old Cedar Ridge building, the pool, and that community campus site. Pool's been closed for a number of years now, and so really the only exciting thing in this fund for the upcoming biennium is insurance and utility costs associated with that site. 80% of the overall budget is utilities and insurance. Small contingency just in case, we have unexpected expenditures come up, and then transfers to those indirect support programs.
Where's? Sorry, I'm just, how much?
Is that 2 years worth of insurance, and
Yes, so if
so we might say,
we might save some money there if those front buildings are demoed, the allocation would change in the second year of the biennium to reduce the insurance allocation for that site.
What's the insurance allocation? I don't see it broken down in this. Is it broken down in the budget?
It's broken down in the budget, yes. It's 60,000 for utilities and 66,000 for insurance for the 2-year period.
For what? Second page.
For insuring all the buildings on the community campus site. So that includes the bunker building, the derelict pool building, and the derelict old middle school.
So, okay, so, I'm sorry, I'm just, as the insurance guy, if I can just jump in here.
Yeah.
So if those buildings were to collapse, would we want to replace them? Right, so, but right now we're insuring all of them.
Yeah, we need to carve that out.
Yeah, and so I feel like we need to carve out just the bunker building and drop the insurance on, I mean, are there more than just building insurance? I mean, I guess there's gonna be a
I mean, it's
small
our-
allocation for slips and falls and general liability.
Liability.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
that's covered under the general, city policy.
Right.
Yep.
So, yeah, I don't see a reason why we would have property insurance on anything but the bunker building over there. If somebody disagrees, please speak up, but I don't.
Tyler, where exactly or is that insurance breakdown?
It is on page 77 of your paper documents.
Yeah, I see the insurance, but I don't see the breakdown.
280. That's not, the breakdown for insurance charges is not presented in the budget document,
Okay,
but our insurance allocation is based on square foot, so. 27,000 for. So that's.
So that's for all of them.
Mhm.
So I agree wholeheartedly.
Carl?
I agree wholeheartedly that we don't want to insure anything that's going to be poured out. But is there something in the new park construction? that we're needing for insurance? I know there's at least one shelter in there. Oh, this insurance will entail that rest in that.
that's a good point.
Yeah. I think any future structures in that park will be paid for through insurance allocation to the parks maintenance department, similar to the structures that are out in Mining Park. So that the park land would be paid for out of parks maintenance.
So that's going to be part of the parks?
Yep.
Okay.
Any other?
Yeah, so I still want to know, if we don't insure those two buildings, what's the cost savings?
Well, Jordan just had it pulled up, and it's probably,
Like 15 grand a year.
it's 26,000 a year for insurance, but that's for all three buildings, so, a third of that's gonna remain intact. There's about 24,000, I think.
It's not, we're not saving.
So, I mean, you're not gonna save a ton of money, and really, the second year of the Biennium, if we demo those buildings, there wouldn't be insurance coverage on them anyway, so that number is gonna decrease by default, because we're not gonna have the insurance on them.
If you get to
I
worry
think we're
about
really
it,
talking
we're
about
not
the first
talking
year.
about a lot of money.
No, I'm not worried about it. I just want to know what the numbers are. How do you make decisions if you don't know what the
No,
numbers
I
are?
just say they're not gonna be very big numbers for us, all I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean,
That's why I just,
Yeah.
I don't really care. Yeah,
Yeah, maybe 40,000 for the Biennium.
right.
or no less, actually.
Like 36.
36,000 for the Biennium.
This is one of those things that it would be nice to have everybody know.
We think about 36,000.
For the biennium.
For the
Biennium.
18,000 a year savings.
I said 15, I said almost 15,000 a year.
Oh,
My
my-
goodness, that's.
Yeah, it is important to note too that this biennium, there's no general revenue being transferred to the aquatic center fund. Previously, there has been general revenue allocated to that. There was enough of a beginning balance projected that we could
cover that.
just run
But
through.
why not end up with a bigger ending balance
Sure.
just by taking it out?
Unless we want to knock it down
Do you
and
have
have our insurance
consensus
paid
that
for.
the staff should remove the insurance on the two buildings other than the bunker building from the budget, whatever that small figure is? I see no nods to the negative, so make it so.
I just want to ask, like if there's homeless people that move in there and somehow, whatever,
The building catches fire and they're in it.
something like that, yeah,
It's a liability, not a property claim.
okay.
I knew where you're going.
Hopefully that's not happening. but, yeah.
Hopefully not.
Since you mentioned bunker building, and since these things are going away, where will we see bunker building charges next year, next time?
Well, that's a good question. I don't have an answer readily available. I would argue probably renaming this fund and just keeping it where it's at. And then, developing
Maybe we
that
should name
plan
the
for.
bunker building first.
Yeah.
and then the
Once,
Yeah.
once the bunker building becomes, it's
That's,
developed through the urban renewal fund, its ongoing maintenance can't be part of the urban renewal fund. It has to be a separate thing, right?
but let's say that building gets used for parks and recreation services, right? So,
Or whatever.
or whatever, but in that example,
It'll go to
would be
that.
housed under those
Or
departments.
senior center.
Yeah. So I think we have a few more, the council has a few more policy decisions to make before I can really answer that
Is
in
the,
entirety.
is the utilities for the Sandy Net stuff in the Sandy Net budget?
The Sandy Net Department Telecommunications Fund pays a portion of those utilities. And that just gets transferred from one fund to the other. Unfortunately, though, with that site, electricity is not cheap. There's some water issues. And I think there's upgrades and repairs that need to be made to that building, but we've been hesitant to do that because we didn't know what we're going to use it for. So, long term, once the bunker building is upgraded or retrofitted or whatever that looks like, I think we'll probably see a lot of energy efficiencies and cost savings there.
Anything else now that we've dealt with the insurance bank to do with the recreation and athletic center?
I think really just the big goal here is to develop and execute a plan to address the derelict buildings. It sounds like.
And take aquatic out of the equation. 'Cause
That's-
it's no longer there.
Yep. Otherwise,
Unfortunately.
that is the
Okay,
end of that.
move on to the next thing, Parks Capital Project.
I'm sorry, one more question, real quick, is because so that the budget allocates for the removal of certain portions of the building.
Yeah, the renewal or refund. Yep.
Good evening. It's really nice to be here in person. It's good to see everybody. So happy to be back. I'll be presenting really quickly on the Parks and Capital Project Fund. So this funding stream actually has two different revenue sources. It's our fee in lieu and our system development charges. And the first resource is the land development. And it's 2023, 2025. We're estimating approximately $1,646,957 for land purchase as far as revenue coming in, and that includes the beginning balance, the proposed fees and interest. For our system development charges or SDCs, we're projecting total resources amounting to $3,582,681. And again, that includes the beginning balance, estimated fees that will be assessing in 2023, 2025. And then looking at our requirements or our expenses, so we've earmarked $1.5 million for capital outlay for the purchase of land. And this is in order to meet one of the council goals, which is to research and act on the purchase of parkland for future facilities and natural and open spaces. And then we have a capital outlay of system development charges of $3.5 million, and that's earmarked for future park improvements and various trail development. And then before we move on, I just want to make a note on the operations fund. So there is a section in there that has the operation total. So the history of that in 2017-19, the city hired a planner, and a portion of that position included park planning. And so funds were allocated from the general fund to help offset the funding for that position. And then more general fund was allocated for that position that was actually needed. So you can see for two bienniums in a row, it rolled over. That actually that fund is going to be going away in the future. We're not going to be using it in the future. So highlighting real quick some of our accomplishments in 2021, 2023. So we completed and updated our Parks and Trails master plan. We updated and implemented our parks system development charges and fee in lieu. And then we continued our efforts for the visioning of the community campus park development. So this included extensive public engagement, and then we worked with a landscape and engineering architect, Lango Hansen, and American Ramp Company to design a preferred park concept that includes play features, a walking path, parking, a skate park, and a pump track. So Parks Capital for 2023-2025 are set up in order to meet council goals. And the first one is to develop the new community park at the community campus. And the tentative timeline for this is bids will go out in the fall, and then we plan to break ground at the beginning of the new year. And then the Parks Department will continue to engage the Community Campus Visioning Council Subcommittee regarding the front half of the campus. And then the department will complete the connector trail to the community campus, or from the community campus down to Sandy River. And then this project is actually being funded partly with SDCs, and then a grant that the department received from Oregon Park and Recreation Department for building that trail. And then we're going to prioritize the planning and development of Deer Point if funding's available. And again, this park major funding mechanism for this would be SDCs in order to accomplish this park development. And then finally, there are funds in the CIP budget to support the department's effort in researching and acting on the purchase of parkland, future parking natural spaces. Okay, so in closing, real quick budget highlights about this. So the capital outlay includes money for land development to purchase fields, natural areas and open space. And then the capital outlay for SDCs includes the construction of approximately $1.8 million for the community campus, $1.5 million for Deer Point, and then an additional $200,000 for Mine Egg, and then various trail developments. Turn it over for questions.
Quick question. So when I hear natural space and open space, right, are we talking about just like or whatever? Are we talking about improving like activity space for sports and things like that?
Two different types of land that you would purchase. So natural space or open space would be very similar to like Tickle Creek, where you develop, people would go in and experience the open space. And some properties would be purchased just for land banking to preserve that natural space. And so for the field purchase different, it would have to be relatively flat land, knowing that we were going to develop it, and yep, and location would be key for that one too.
Why is there no consideration for that? Even if it's just land banking or something like that.
For the development of fields.
It's something that I feel like there's cities really lacking.
I think that's part of the discussion when we start looking at land purchase. And if there's relatively flat land that's available, that would be one of the amenities that we would strongly consider putting on a piece of property, depending on its location and, is it flat, is it, so it is a consideration.
Quick follow-up, sorry, just a second follow-up on Rich is, so but the money is just to purchase the land for a future athletic field. It's not to actually develop the athletic field on the property, correct?
Correct.
I guess I just want to wrap my mind around. So when I hear natural space and stuff like that, would that include that kind of land, or is that just nowhere even in the considerations?
It could, I mean, it could be a part of where there's some natural spaces that include flat property where we could develop a park, like a open field. But ideally, it would be, if we're looking at a baseball field or like a multi-purpose field, it would have to be a different type of purpose.
Just to clarify this, I feel like, because I had asked this question, that buying land banking land for a future sports complex, sports fields, whatever, that's future parkland. That's not really natural and open space. And I kind of asked this question before, or, over a week ago, and asked about this open space thing because it concerned me, because in our Parks and Trails master plan, we have a surplus. We have almost 200 acres of natural space, open space already. And we don't need any more. And we can't take care of, we had 60 trees go down recently in Tickle Creek corridor, and we can't hardly take care of the natural space we have. So I think that, but on the other hand, there was some talk about acquiring some land that had a future trail alignment on it in a certain part of the park. And so what I would like to see us do as a council is kind of just strengthen our goal and say that parks and natural space that meets the goals stated in the master plan. And so that we're not just out there
And a
buying.
balanced inventory in the park system.
I mean, the master plan says that we don't need any for a good long while. And I'm concerned that we're off buying, there has been stuff brought here to go buy more natural space that we really don't need. And we need to be focusing on getting Deer Point and all these other, and the sports complex and all those things done, and not out there buying natural space unless, like I said, if there's a trail alignment area over that land and we can acquire it, that meets the goals of the master plan. So
Yeah, well,
that's,
the other thing is, one of the things that we brought up at the last meeting was coordinating a joint meeting with the school board. And our lack of fields and all that, part of it's due to we developed fields for the school district, but now we're having to pay money to use. The fields adjacent to the high school, those were paid for by the city of Sandy. Some of the improvements after the fact, like the sod field, the artificial fields and stuff, the school district, but Nancy and I basically, and the Parks Board at the time, those fields were ours. So I think a shared use or an agreement with the school district to be more flexible in the use of their fields, which are actually the city's fields too, might be a way to go when you meet with them in a joint session to come up with something more equitable.
Preach it. I love that.
You know,
That's totally true.
well, it's
Yeah,
Stan.
I'm next, but if you have a follow-up, please.
Oh, no, I was, just to clarify, the 1.5 is exactly to accomplish, and I think we heard that the priority was seeking land to bank for future
Well,
development.
that's what I thought. I mean, I
complex.
don't understand why we need to differentiate.
I think it just, in the council goal, it talks about open space and natural areas as well. I think it was just for flexibility. If an
Yeah,
opportunity
so-
came up to extend the trail or something like that, but I think the bulk of the effort here over the next couple of years is to identify the best suitable lands for land banking.
Especially during the moratorium, they can't build houses on it, they get that one. It's flat, it's nice.
I'm glad you said that, because that,
Standards.
oh, I'm sorry.
Well, you can go.
I'm glad you said that, Chair, because my question is more about the revenue streams for fine fees and assessments. It's going from 600,000 to 1.8, and that's mostly in line because the city council raised the rates. But as the chair just said, nobody's building.
That's not true.
And,
Well,
well,
Less building is going on.
there's less building going on. And I don't think you're gonna have the same rate of, contracts coming in over the next 2 years. So has that number been equalized to accommodate for that adjustment?
Yeah, and that's actually a pretty conservative number compared to some of the numbers that we ran with Kelly as far as like the current development that's in the hopper.
They pay that, mostly they pay it when they do the building permits.
My question's on the 200,000 for Minot Park. What is the budget allocation for that? Where's that all planning on going? I don't need details, but just vaguely, where's it going?
Yeah, there's
Stan
definitely.
wants lights.
No, I want you electrification for lights. This is capital, but yeah.
There's definitely some trail restoration that needs to happen down there. And then we are looking at some of the bridges that are in desperate need of repair. And so it's, and then one of the things that's on the list and has been for a long time is Fantasy Forest. And so looking at how to fix that and make that safe. It's safe,
How
but there's
many years has it
definitely,
been?
gosh, 20.
Has it been pushing 25?
But the reminder on that, I just feel the need to say, and I think Kathleen's really gonna enjoy this too, is it was DJ Anderson and his wife that raised money with community members for that. And so we don't always have to just do it with taxpayer money, like, I think we do need to be thoughtful as to going out and raising money and doing some of the lifting ourselves. Because I think
It was built by the community.
built by the community. I mean, if we reached out and said fantasy, we need to replace Fantasy Forest or whatever, I think we'd raise a lot of money to be able to do that.
Let's go, Stan, what are you up for?
First of all, my brick's already over there. My mom and dad paid for it.
Fantasy Forest is another example of those things that get built with other dollars and with community input, but have no placeholder within the city budget for maintaining it and keeping that investment viable. There's no placeholder for yearly maintenance of, not enough, to keep it maintained.
You're singing this song?
Yeah, so we do have parks, and we increased it quite a bit since.
But a lot of times we wait until something is broken before we fix it instead of.
And I will just kind of shout out the trails there. I mean, I was all about the holiday lights, but the thing that concerned me was that the trails there are, people walking around in the dark on those trails that are just horrible, potholed and, falling into the creek and all that. That was my biggest concern, was the safety hazards with those trails. And so getting, we had money to do that. We had a grant of $650,000 that we gave back because we couldn't match it to replace those and make them ADA and all that. And so somehow carving out some money to try to get those fixed is really critical to making sure that that event is safe. They did kind of put in some hot patch in there and all, but it's still a bit of a.
Sure. I'll go that step.
Done.
Okay, so first, I want to thank FDR for our electrification comment.
Right.
That's the original electrification of America, so.
Right.
Which we do need to make sure, we've been talking and to make sure we've got that infrastructure ready for the holiday is big. But my primary question is, how does this and the other budget we look at, how is that going to hit that phase one of the community campus Is it going to cover it in this budget? Is it going to be a deficit? What are we short, or is it all in here? I mean, that's really the essence of the question. What do we get with the proposed budget?
So for the parks capital, there's $3 million, or actually, this park capital has the SCC portion in it, which was the $2 million that we had put aside for the spending for phase one for the community campus. It reflects 1.8 right now because we have been spending money on design and development. The other pot of money comes out of the urban renewal, and there's $3 million earmarked there from the original purchase of the property. And so that's been dedicated. So we're at approximately $5 million for the construction of the community campus with both the SURA and then this capital of SDCs. We did go out and write a grant for $485,000. We'll know in June, we'll do the interview process for it, and then I believe they announced in July and August. So that'll be another approximately $485,000 if we get that grant. And so we're at about 5.5 for construction. And then there's some design costs to wrap into that. And the preliminary numbers that came back for construction was 5.4. But again, that's holding a really high contingency of 20%. And then also we have some opportunity to value engineer. We're in the very beginning stages of talking about that budget and the actual preliminary numbers.
So to summarize, then in the proposed budgets, phase one is probably in.
Yep.
Okay.
If we get,
Yep.
if we get the grant.
And
Yep, the grant is.
okay,
Okay, mine's just a general little clip here on the 1.5 million for land bank. I would think that as a city, we would use that money instead of buying more land to maintain. We would take care of some of the projects that we have in the pipe now, get them done, get them over with. Unless you got a sites on a piece of property somewhere that is such a super deal, you can't pass it up. But I think you could use that elsewhere than just banking land at this time.
Part of the revenue stream for the land development comes through a code, which is the fee in lieu of parkland dedication. And so when a developer comes in, they can either donate parkland to the park department or pay a fee in lieu of the parkland dedication. And so those funds are specifically marked for future land purchase and can't be used for reinvestment back into the system. So it's for land, it's the purchase of land. Yeah.
Carl?
She said it.
Okay,
You know.
so in the interest, Kathleen, one more question, because in the interest of trying to get through and adopt this budget tonight, we need to move on to the next budget.
okay, and so the first goal on this thing is to continue to engage the community campus visioning subcommittee to further the conversation regarding the future of the front half of the community campus property. And I'm just going to point out that the front half is not a park. Even, it may be a community center, whatever, but we can't be using this SDC money because that whole thing is not in the Parks Master Plan at all. We purposely ignored putting.
That's
the
urban renewal
pool-
money, right?
Yeah, and so that's supposed to be, but it's under this Parks Capital Fund, and so I think that should be moved to the SURA budget.
I agree with that.
She's on 78.
What's that? It's on
Page number?
page
First goal.
78, first bullet under goals.
Why would we? I totally agree with that. Why would we not do that?
Yeah.
I guess I'm looking at Tyler, sorry.
There's no money associated with that goal. That's just a continue to engage the community, so we can really put it anywhere. It naturally fell onto this slide, just given
Oh, okay.
that
There's
site
no
as a
money
whole, but
allocated
there's
towards
no
that, though?
money allocated for.
Right, but that's a goal of using SURA money for it. If we were to engage consultants or whatever, we would use our park.
We're not
SDC
changing the
money.
dollars in this budget anymore. Any more questions? So we're
Not that we
moving
shouldn't do the budget.
I agree with what Kathleen was talking about. Look at it, sir.
I agree with both Kathleen and Linda's need to move on.
I
Okay.
agree with the mayor.
Thank you.
Sorry. I'm gonna move on.
Up next, we have transit. Andy Howell making her way up here.
Just make sure that happens.
We're doing the urban renewal next, but we're gonna hopefully finish this one.
I
and
hope
the
so.
next meeting.
I would
about an hour and a half.
like to just make a comment that we stay on topic with things that pertain to the budget and not side conversation about things that have nothing to do with the budget.
And as a council, anything that has nothing to do with the budget, you can just decide on your own.
That's
So
right.
I think that's for that.
But we love arguing.
Yeah. But you can do that on your own too. Andy,
Okay,
I love your computer.
thank you.
Starry Night's my favorite. I have one of mine too. And shoes. You size 8.
Oh, good evening. Good to see you guys again for week 3. I will try to be brief. I am not known for being brief, so I'll look at Lori every time I think I'm gonna start talking a lot and she'll run me through. So, right, like this. So, I will give a brief overview of transit in general, because I think it's really important as we go into the transit budget. Obviously, we have now transitioned out of general revenue fund programs, so transit does not receive funds from the general revenue. So that's important to note always. Yay, thank you. So so how do we? Most people know that we have a payroll tax that is collected, and that is collected in-house in my department. So we have 2.8 FTE that work for the city of Sandy. One of those, well, all of us work on the transit tax, but it is one position heavily works on collecting the transit tax in-house with the help of finance, of course. I am the director, so there is also a program administrator, and she does a lot of, well, I should say that I try to, as you can imagine, we wear many hats because we are 2.8 people overseeing essentially 2 transit services. So I try to stay with the policies and the fundings and the grant compliance as much as possible, and my program administrator gets into the weeds and the daily and really interacts with our contracted employees a lot more than I do, et cetera. So that's kind of what we are doing in the transit department. We are housed in the operations center, and that will be important as we go through this budget alongside public works and parks and facilities. And as you know, that there's police also has a bay in there currently. So I'm just gonna start by highlighting some of the obvious so that maybe I can address some questions right away. What is this? That's much better. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, is this timing me too?
Yeah.
I love it. Okay, so sorry.
3 minutes.
I can't read. Fines, fees, and assessments, as you can see, went from what we thought was 1.5 million in the 21-23 budget to 4.1 million in this budget. That is not because we increased the payroll tax. We have never, the city of Sandy in 20 years increased the payroll tax. We have no intentions of doing so. We've never had the conversation to do so. I think that is a very important that you guys hear that and that our community hears that, because we have a lot of capital projects happening in this budget, and I want our community to understand that it is revenue that we are bringing to the city from the state and the federal government, and we're using that payroll tax as our local match. So that is our leverage. The 4.1 is significantly larger. A lot of that, part of that is STIF funding, which is, I won't even read it to you because we're kind of in a hurry, but, or I won't say it out loud, but it was created through House Bill 2017. When they did the big transportation package, they did carve out some funding for transit. So that funding is included. That funding in the past for us in our last budget cycle was about 265,000. That has kicked up to about 1.686 million in this budget. The reason for that is because there's several different buckets of money in STIF. One is funding that will come to us based on our payroll or what
Services.
what our payroll in town is. So as long as you have a stiff plan, you have to have a stiff plan, which we do. If you can identify your services, then based on the payroll that's generated in your area, you can receive funding. There's another bucket that is called regional coordination. You apply for that. It goes in front of TriMet's committee. It's TriMet's advisory board that decides how much they're going to put in the regional coordination bucket and who gets to be in that bucket. We did not, this is the first year that we applied for that bucket. That is how we are going to fund the Clackamas Town Center route. Once you get those funds, you always get those funds. So it's not going to go away or be something that we have to worry about in the future. There's also $250,000. So that was about 900,000. And then there's 250,000 that was added so we could buy a new vehicle for that route. So that is, I don't think we can run an electric on that route yet. It'll run 6 times a day.
Thanks, FDR.
That might be a little long.
So, yeah, I know, I'm just
How are
trying
you gonna
that
get the
theme.
electricity?
But we'll get there.
So,
We'll get there. We will probably start with a Gillis.
So we'll
A
be
diesel.
purchasing a new Gilly
Yes,
diesel.
probably. Or we will probably actually do what we did before and we will rehab a diesel that we currently have once it reaches its useful life so that we aren't putting another brand new diesel out.
I like that idea a
Yeah.
lot more.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
We did that before and the bus is beautiful.
You knew that
The
question.
drivers, yeah, we're getting there faster than I thought we would. And I remember early on, you were like, how quickly can we
I
go
wanted a
electric?
certain date. I
want
think
to-
we're at the
you
date.
were- yeah,
actually.
you're
I wanted
like,
it fast.
2029, I want the entire fleet electric. I want to say we did it. And I was like, I don't think we can, but we can.
I appreciate your effort.
Yes, I'm trying. So that is one of the reasons fines, fees, and assessments looks so robust. Yes, this round. And again, it is not because we increased fine, fees, and assessments on the citizens of Sandy.
Very effective in getting outside funds.
I just gotta say something here. The difference between a diesel rig and electric rig is significantly more. Would you expect to see some of the fees and assessments going up to take care of that?
No, I do not see fees and assessments going up.
Even though like the diesel bus, the 40 passenger that you're gonna go for electric this time is almost double. what
Yeah.
diesel is.
No, we will not have, if what you're asking is, are we going to increase what we ask from our citizens in order to meet those capital needs? The answer is definitely no.
Okay.
So we've been really successful and fortunate to be able to get grants to bring those vehicles in.
No question there.
Yeah, and we have always kept a pretty good beginning balance, not just for a rainy day, but for capital projects. So what we really aim to do, and this is where I start looking at you.
That statement was not meant for you guys. It was meant for these beautiful people out here.
So what I typically do, are you committee member Exner instead of
That's-
council
yes.
member
You
Exner?
better get it right.
KU is fine. Yeah.
So what I have always aimed to do, like I said, is use that payroll tax that's collected as our local match. But as much state funding through programs like STF that I can bring in and also use, then we tend to squirrel away that payroll tax and that becomes what we put into contingency and move forward.
I'm fine with that. I'll hold you to that.
Yep, yeah.
Cool. Move on.
Please do, please hold me to it. So, grants is about 1.8, which doesn't look like we did a whole lot there, but again, a lot of that is because it's in fines, fees, and assessments. Such as there's also an STIF discretionary pot of money. And This was our first year that we put in for a discretionary grant award, and we should see the signature on the approval next month. And that is for about a $450,000 project. So it hasn't been decided yet at the Transportation Commission. There's a couple ways they can award that money to us. The lowest amount that I see us getting in grant funds for that project is $360,000. So that is also included in as a fines, fees, and assessments, but it's actually a discretionary grant. Okay. Did I forget any grants or revenue? I don't believe I did. As far as, I definitely want to explain the materials and services because that is also quite a leap. I have a lot of things that are included in that, and it's not just our contractors fees. So in the past, most of what you would see in that line item is what we pay for our contracted employees. For those who don't know, 2.8 people run the transit department, and we contract out drivers, dispatchers, a maintenance coordinator, a bus washer, a road supervisor, etc., a GM. What is also included is a lot of the grants that I mentioned before. Those projects are included in contracted services in this round. So that $450,000 project is a tech grant. One of the things, it's got like 4 different things that it's aimed to do, and one of them is to put out an RFP and allow for us to begin to take fares from our phones, which we call mobile ticketing or e-fares. So that is under that line item, and that's an extra 400,000, I believe, is there. We also, with the federal grant that was awarded for our 2 electric buses, part of that grant requirement is that once you total up your entire grant, you add 5% for workforce development, because a lot of training comes with electric vehicles. So they make sure it's paid for by that grant. So that's another, I believe it's about $120,000. Might be 125. So some of that is in there to train the drivers, train the local mechanics, etc. What else is in there? Oh, so our rates right now to our contractor are $77 a revenue service hour paid to them. Next year it goes to 79, and after that we don't really know, because we have to go out for an RFP, which we will probably release in December. So part of our goals is to find out how to keep that number low. It keeps raising every time wages go up. That contracted cost skyrockets. At one point we were paying $45 a revenue service hour about I don't know, 6 years ago. We were paying 60 something 2 years ago, and now we're at 77. So so that is another reason that cost has gone up. And then because I don't know, I went ahead and just added $10 to the revenue service hour, because I don't want to be afraid that if we get a high number back, we don't really have choices. I want to be able to make sure that we can pay for at least a year if we have to. Hopefully, we're working on things to keep that number low, but we'll see. And then there's an additional new route buried in there. So I put 2,000 for the first year, 2,000 revenue hours for that Clackamas Town Center route, and 2,800 more revenue hours. Currently, just so you know, we run about 16,000 revenue hours a year. So so that's why that number is so high. I don't expect it, A, to actually be that high. I'm hoping it is not that high, and B, it won't be that high in later after we get through some of these projects that we have going on right now. And then we have a large capital outlay because we currently have, I have a RFQ with legal as we speak. I just got an email back from them actually to have the design of the maintenance bay and second admin building at the operations center. We got a grant to cover the planning, the architectural and engineering planning, so we can be shovel ready when somebody finds funding. That RFQ hopefully will go out next week, and we will have those plans ready by June 30th, 2024. So we have that project happening, and then we also, which I guess that will be wrapped up now, but then we also have updates or upgrades that need to happen to the operations center for those electric buses. The bad news is we were in the PGE Fleet Partner Program. They told us the program was good for 5 years or until they run out of money. We got through most of the planning process with them, and they ran out of money. So they have let me know that the approximately 475,000, although the last time I looked, it's even higher than that, is not going to be covered. They will stand by continuing to help with the planning at no cost. But we suddenly had a $475,000 hole in this budget. However, I've met with ODOT already, and there are 2 grants that are due at the end of this month that we will apply for, and I hope to have that hole plugged by the end of this month. Thank you. Okay, so moving on. Thanks. I think I've kind of said what our accomplishments are. I will hit on, we are in training with all of that new equipment on our buses right now, and it's a lot of fun to have all new software, all new equipment, and it's all tech related. So it's really fun down there right now. But anyway, besides that, ever since STIF was created, the intent of the legislators at the time was to make sure that transit worked together to fill the needs that weren't currently there. So it was for expanded service, and it was for transit agencies to work together. So the Clackamas County providers have done an excellent job of, we've come together as a coalition, and we meet weekly actually to problem solve, look for money, figure out what our next steps are, whatever the project is happening, etc. So when we went out for all of this equipment for the new buses, we included them on the RFP, and we all actually chose the same vendor and equipment. So everywhere in Clackamas County, it's the Passio Go app now. You guys probably remember it was Double Map for a long time. It's now Passio Go. So for the customers, it's a seamless ride. We are going to do the e-fares, the tech project that I was just talking about. That will be all of Clackamas County providers and Hood River, so that you will hopefully be paying your e-fares, mobile ticketing using the same app, same vendor. And I think we have another, and we have a website coming out at the end of this month. We went through a planning process, and we have created a website that has all of the Clackamas County and trip planning, etc. And we have new computer aided dispatch software. The only thing I'm going to touch on with that is I'm trying to move us more in the ability to move towards microtransit. This computer software, we used to call people every night and remind them of their trips the next day, much like your doctors do. Now this computer software does it for us. They can opt in for text messages instead if they want to. They can book online instead of calling dispatch if they want to. The driver hits a button and it calls them and tells them your driver is on the way and they're X minutes from your location. And if a new ride is booked, it gets sent directly to the driver's tablet. You know, to date, we have been literally printing on paper what their manifest is for the day. Now it's on a tablet. It can be changed as they're going. It's really nice. And hopefully that will move us into, you know, the ability for people to just book a ride through there, pay through there. And Yeah.
You're talking your med rights though?
I'm
Or-
talking the dial-a-ride service.
Right.
So not med rights. It's available to the general public.
Dial-a-ride is?
Yes.
open to the general public?
General public. So we prioritize elderly and disabled, but it's open to general public.
We publicize that.
Yeah.
I know I'm off the budget.
Yes,
but-
we do.
all right.
But you know what? But you're right. Like, we probably need to do a
I
better
didn't
job
know that.
because a lot of people think, oh, that's the bus that, if you're older and you can't drive,
Right.
you take that bus. Which is why on the back it says, call us, we'll pick you up. Because we're trying to tell everyone, just call us and we'll pick you up.
Is that just within the city limits?
It is mostly within the city limits, except we can go within 3 miles of the center of the city.
So you're not taking me to the airport?
I'm not taking you to the airport.
There's the service.
No. The only way I am taking you out of town is if it's for medical, yes, if it's for a medical service that you cannot get.
You won't need to use that.
Yeah,
We
so
do
the
partner with the senior center though, and of their programs for medical rides and bring people from out of town into town for those
Well.
services. So. Blah, 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 blah,
Yeah,
blah,
yeah,
blah. You can read.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, what I wanted to say was listening to all the things that the Sandy bus service does now. I'm just amazed at where it's come from, but 20 some years plus on. And when we went to TriMet and said, please let us out of your system. And they said, oh, you missed it by 6 months. And then we went again when the time was up and we got out. And I think we also caused Canby and a few other places to get out.
You remind me.
It is amazing.
We let.
It is the
Yes.
service that I got the most messages from consumers, from our citizens. The more message I got on that, that would make me cry, from the people that use it, who didn't have an ability to go visit their grandkids, whatever. I know this is off budget too, but you do a great service. It's really come along a long way. And I think if there aren't any questions on your budget, we'll move on to the next one. Dawn,
Can I highlight my goals real quick?
sure. Oh,
I won't read through all of them, but I just want to say that hopefully they look like your goals, because I get my goals from your goals and my TMP. And also the #1 requested addition from the public during our transit master plan was Saturday service of the shopper shuttle. That will start July 1 if we have a new driver, which they are telling me we will. So as of July 1, we will have that Saturday service of the shopper shuttle. And you can add to my goals, we are already talking about how to get kids to aquatic programs
Great. I
as
like it.
a partnership.
All right,
So
right,
it's
right,
not in the
right.
slides, but we've already started the discussions, started that
I'm
night. We
sure
heard
there's a
you loud
grant
and
out
clear.
there for that.
What's this safe and efficient route to Clackamas County
It's Clackamas County Town Center.
Town Center?
Yeah.
That's what I missed.
Yeah, sorry, I
I was
probably
like,
cut that
Clackamas
off.
County's a big place.
No doubt. Okay, we also have funds in our budget for the maintenance of the operations center. So we are not just doing the infrastructure for electric buses, but also the scraping and the painting and the starting July 13th, they're gonna come out to trim trees, fix gutters, etc. And I think that's it. Now I'll take questions. Thank you.
Yeah, I see that your marketing budget doubled and I just wondered what kind of things you're doing because I'm interested.
Yes, yes, thank you for asking. So again, we heard loud and clear that you wanted the city to be aware of our services, particularly especially the shopper shuttle. Butts and seats, absolutely. So we are looking at broadening. We haven't really advertised in the past other than, swag or an occasional thing in the paper. So we're looking at a lot of things. So part of what's in there, I believe that we will need to do a whole new design concept for the wrap of electric buses, because you really want people to be aware that they are not just the same buses. They won't look the same, but still you really want to explain that those are new electric buses. So some of that is design concepts and working with printers and possibly even photographers that have to take the photos, etc. And then we also are expecting that we'll be adding probably bus stop signs, bus stop stickers, branding, et cetera, on the new route. And then we really need to beef up what I would like to do is beef up our advertising in Gresham and Portland. And let them know that our service is out there. One of my goals, not to go on and on, but I haven't even talked about Mount Hood Express tonight, which is a wonderful partner of ours. I want to change up some of our routes a little bit, interline some of our services and get some of the cars to stay in Gresham instead of traveling out here to our Sandy Operations Center. Our Operations Center parking lot is full in the winter. There's 35 cars when we show up at 7:30 in the morning sometimes. And so we are looking at how we can interline and change the routes a little bit. People are scared that if they don't get on the first stop, they're not going to get on. And the first stop is the Operations Center. So it's kind of designed to drive them to the Operations Center. I'd like to make some changes with that. And to do that, I really need to have a targeted campaign in the Gresham Portland area, because that's who is coming.
Maybe when the Sandy Net billboard comes down, you could design.
I love that billboard, actually.
It's never coming down.
Elevation,
Huh?
elevation
Good for
needs
you.
electrification.
I love big electrification.
I thought you guys were saying that we should just push pop-ups through everyone that has internet.
There you go.
Well, can I play devil's advocate really quick?
Yes.
Damn it. I'm gonna stick on the budget, but why don't we want those folks from Gresham and Portland parking in Sandy so that there's more of an opportunity to capture that
It's
business?
not a transit sign.
No, but right, and I'm not saying it could be somewhere else in Sandy, but would we rather they parked in Sandy?
Like an empty parking lot
Yes,
downtown
so
next
When
to
does
the
that
shop
bus
or
come
something.
back?
So-
Maybe the movie theater parking lot that doesn't get.
Yes, but I think Mount Hood Express will continue to grow and grow and grow. They're running 2 buses at a time in the winter, one right behind the other, because they're full when they leave Sandy. So, so I think we'll still get that. I think that will still
Okay.
be there. And we are part of a park and ride study right now with ODOT to identify a good park and ride
Great.
here for exactly that. And my vision, what I would like to see is a park and ride that has restrooms, coffee shop, charging stations, bike parking, etc.
Does
Yeah.
the county still own the corner lot at Champion Way, and maybe they'd be good to partner with for that spot?
So that spot has been identified by the planning group as a possible spot, and I reached out to Kelly O'Neill and we're supposed to talk about it, but it's privately owned.
So it's not owned by the
Kelly?
It used to be owned.
Oh, you mean across the street? That might
Yeah.
still be owned by the
The
county.
the
Yeah,
county was
No,
originally gonna
right.
put their
Mhm.
health center there,
right, in
but I
front
don't think
of
they sold the land.
the church. Yeah. That's a good point. That's a good point.
Yes.
Tyler, question for you.
Yes.
When I look at this growth of the transit fund over the 4 bienniums that are shown here, we go from, small 3.6 million to 11 million. It's now a big chunk, almost equivalent to the general fund in one fund. I wonder if down the, as you look at this coming by in, next time we come through, maybe putting some additional accounts and funds to, since these numbers have just become somewhat astronomical almost, provide more visibility. You went through all the details, but that would provide the details on paper.
Yes. I mean, we can easily, create new departments within that fund for the different services that Andy provides.
Exactly.
An administrative department, operations, your contract employees. We can-
Right,
we can explore that for sure.
Yes.
I was gonna kind of build on that and just, we seem to have kind of lumped the Mount Hood Express and the Sandy Net and now we're going to Clackamas Town Center all into one. And so one of the things I'd like to see in the future is having kind of those programs broken out a little bit more so that we know, kind of what the cost is versus what the ridership is and all that. The other thing I would add on is, and Jenny, I'm gonna, is that I know, we're gonna get to the public works and stuff, and I know they're proposing 3 more people and stuff. So I'm just gonna be a broken record about expanding at the operations center. Of course, we need to meet the transit, and transit has all the money. But of course, Public Works has a lot of money too. I just want to make sure that when we're planning for that site, for our operations center, that we're planning to accommodate these 3 new employees that we might be hiring in Public Works, as well as the expansion for your transit needs, and just making sure everybody's at the table kind of figuring out, because space wars can get, kind of challenging at times. So just making sure we're planning for the future for all these expanded offerings, especially for our Sandy folks.
And that planning falls under something other than the budget right now. So we will move on with the rest.
Yes, and
Well, before Lori
the
blows up.
meetings have happened, and the selection committee, even for the architectural and engineering design, is all of the departments. We've all met to talk about our space needs, et cetera. It's even in the RFQ that it's not just transit that will be used in the building, and that's why it's kind of an RFQ instead of an RFP, because we don't want to be specific. We want design concepts.
And it had to do with the budget allocation.
Yeah.
Those meetings usually take place in a steel cage. right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I should also add, because it's not here, but it's important, that Wyden and Merkley both put in a package, a priority congressional discretionary spending is what it's called now, right? That we all used to call earmarks. A Clackamas County, they prioritized it as a need. It's a transit project. It's for electric vehicles. And if it's awarded, which would take an act of Congress, as Trent Wilson loves to say, Sandy has 2.4 million requests in that ask, or well, a 1.9 ask to complete the maintenance bay.
It's gonna happen.
I think
That
so.
one's gonna happen.
I think so. So cross your fingers that June 30th, when that design is finished, we will at least hopefully have funding to do the maintenance bay. Thank you.
Good job.
Oh,
Okay.
and I'm sorry, but I'm gonna go home now because my son turned 20 today, and I kissed him when I woke up, and I haven't seen him since.
20 is better than 21, I gotta admit.
That's what I was told today. I was told there will probably be tears next year.
Good for
Thank
him. Tell him happy birthday.
I will do it.
Great job, Andy.
Thank you.
Taking some apartment flyers.
No, I don't want him to go
Well,
anywhere.
he's 41
He's a
tomorrow.
gem.
All right, next up is telecommunications for Sandy. It's on page 97 of your budget document. If you have the paper version in front of you. A little bit of jumping around with your paper this evening.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I'm here to talk about SandyNet telecommunications. So hopefully everyone knows, but SandyNet is Sandy's municipal internet service provider, which provides internet and voice services to the Sandy community. And our department facilitates all aspects of an ISP, which I like to call 4 divisions, but we have our network operations, our construction support, and our administration. Currently, we have, I think it's 7 FTEs total, and then we're proposing to go to 7.5 there. That includes 1 full-time customer support specialist, 4 utilities workers, 1 part-time, a network engineer at 0.85, my position at 0.85, and utility billing at 0.3 to come up for a total of 7.5. And next slide. For the accomplishments here, during 2021, 2023, our team focused on affordability, expansion, and preparing for future demands and technologies. We've upgraded half our core network to support projected bandwidth requirements for the next 5 to 8 years. We enrolled in the FCC's Affordable Connectivity Program, ACP, to offer discounted rates to the community for broadband service. We entered into an intergovernmental agreement with Clackamas Broadband Exchange to offer business level services around Clackamas County, as well as residential services to underserved rural areas surrounding Sandy. Our current goals for 2023 and 2025 include keeping up with service demand. We continue to chip away at the remaining unserved areas within Sandy that are without fiber service. In 2024, we will serve Sandy for over 10 years, so we're going to have a celebration. 10 years with fiber, it should specify.
so it's
Yes,
been a lot longer
yes, it's
than
been a lot
that.
longer than that, but 10 years of fiber. And we have already upgraded about 1/3 of the existing equipped customer hardware in deployment. So we will continue to chip away at that. And we are ramping up for newer technologies and that are coming out that will sustain our fiber network for the next 8 to 10 years. And finally, we are going to be completing our SandyNet master, or probably more appropriate business plan, which is going to include long-term goals, staffing analysis and needs, updated rate model, and a space analysis as we look for kind of a permanent home for our team, equipment, and materials. And I can go over some of the budget highlights here, or we can jump right into questions. Any preference?
Jump right into questions.
Okay.
Any questions?
Just one. Under your miscellaneous revenue, I see in the biennium previous 142, 103, and then it goes to 0. And then this year it goes 15,000. What, has something got moved or something get deleted or we're not getting it anymore? Or
For the miscellaneous revenue, we that's usually for special projects that come up. So like, for example, this year, there were a couple of large projects that kind of came up in the past 2 years that we would expend or do work for, and then it wouldn't fall into any of the other categories. Previously, in 2019 to 2021, I know a large portion of that was a project that we did for Clackamas Broadband Exchange, where we drilled some fiber for them, and then in return, they gave us a lump sum of money and some conduit. So that's usually where those special projects come out there.
Okay.
I was not prepared to know exactly which ones went into there, but that's usually what falls into those categories.
okay, so we didn't have anything this current year.
We have, well, from 2021 to 2023, I think we have 60,000 in there current on page
Well,
99.
that's under general revenue, but under the.
Oh, I'm sorry, miscellaneous revenue. Yes, we
Shows
do
big
have
patch.
some. My apologies. We have, yeah, close to 43,000 actually in there, just from other projects here. Wasn't recorded there. We weren't planning on it, but it did come up there. So
Oh, okay, well, that's,
I went ahead and said we usually make at least 20 to 30,000. So I put 15 to be safe for the next biennium, just in case it's a low year, 2 years.
Carl,
Yeah, I see you got 110 for, no, it's not right. I see you got nothing there for the interfund loan. How is it that we're paying, what is your status of you paying back the interfund loans?
Tyler's blowing it up here. I believe we have 5 years, 6 years left. 5 years.
Yeah, I
That's under
Principal
debt
balance of
service.
262,000 remaining,
200 grand, is that?
about 262 in principal.
Kathleen,
Can you kind of just clarify the contractual services going from 100 to 270? Does that include the business plan and other things, or?
Yes, that does include money set aside for the business plan. But more specifically, it's additional software and then ramping up in support costs for the additional systems. So over time, that's a support cost. So we have our core network has support costs that's about 20,000 a year, so 40,000. The Calix fiber to the home network is another 60,000 over 2 years. The support software that allows us to get into the modems remotely through that vendor is another 60,000, and then additional ones, so on. So we
That's okay. I just want to make sure mass
yes.
business plan was in there. And then you kind of touched on getting the apartments, where that was a big thing where we threw a lot of ARPA money at it before. Is that, do we have enough to kind of do what we said we wanted to do? Or is there, probably technical difficulties at doing some of them, or do we need more money to do the rest, or just what's the status of that?
I'd love to come back with an analysis fully on that, but just from a high level, all the ones that we identified, we've reached out to at one point to see gauge interest. It was a few of them that I would have liked to get to originally. We had a hard time getting responses back. One of them actually went with a different provider for an exclusive agreement in one of them. And the other ones, we are currently building out 4 of the 6 that were identified before. And one of them is we're working through rights to access right now with them. We've run into a couple of pickups trying to get access. It's been fully designed. It's ready to move there, but we just don't have the actual rights yet. And then the last one is the industrial, which we were going to use to pick up the remaining wireless areas down there, which actually, I think I had the owner reach out to me just a couple hours ago. I haven't taken a look at it yet, but they are, that one's going to be very interesting because of the composition of the dirt. From talking to the construction and the owners, there's a lot of backfill, concrete, school bus. You don't know what you're going to run into down in the dirt down there. So that's why that one, we said that one has the potential to increase in cost more than the others. So that's why we're doing it very last.
But you have enough, I mean, is there anybody out there that we'd really like to get to, but you don't have the money for?
Short answer, yes. I don't know the exact cost yet, but there are other sites that when we prioritize these ones, there are other ones that we plan on getting to that we certainly could throw into the mix.
Is Vista Loop on the list?
Vista Loop is being built out as we speak, yes.
So, Stan,
So I guess that kind of down that line of questioning is how close are we to being done laying fiber in city limits on our own dime? Meaning, because right now, if you're a new development, they're responsible for laying it for us.
Mhm.
So I mean, are we almost there?
Yes, the only ones remaining are apartment complexes and probably less than 10 businesses.
Okay,
Well, after the ARPA project specifically.
but businesses in like more rural parts, like, so obviously if they're downtown Sandy, they're.
Yeah, like let's take like the vet clinic, for example, off of near where the Bell and 362nd is.
Mhm.
That one's just far enough away from the existing pipe that it would be substantial construction just to get out to there for that one business. Other ones we are now getting closer to, like, for example, the AMTM station near Tractor and Supply had long been without the ability to get service. And now that free up storage has gone into place, that infrastructure is right across the street and that cost has come down dramatically.
Well, the vet center more likely is going to be accessed from the north now. When the stuff up above Bell Street gets developed, it'll come down to it as opposed to coming down the highway.
Yes.
But are we paying for that, or are those business owners paying for that?
The business owners are paying for, usually we come up with kind of a fixed balance on a ratio, and if it exceeds our projections, like it's a higher cost one, we end up putting the full brunt of the cost on them for that.
Because the only reason I go down this, then I'll step away, we can move forward, is, you know, I was just telling Linda, I'm a big believer in Sandy Net. I think between Sandy Net and transit, those were the 2 biggest things that happened to this community. But I also believe, like, technology, when we first got Sandy Nets, because Verizon, Comcast, our residents were not able to access the internet, full stop. But now, I mean, I can go out into the middle of nowhere with a Starlink dish and get, you know, high-speed internet that I'm sure someone like you would notice the difference. But someone like me, really, I can stream my movies and my Netflix and my HBO and work at the same time, and I feel pretty good. And so, where I just get nervous about the future of an overinvestment in Sandy Net is laying down a lot more fiber and stuff when the technology, at least to this guy who's not a techie at all, not good at all these apps and stuff. But it feels to me like the technology is moving beyond fiber and the dirt.
I would personally disagree.
Well, and you know much more than I do. That's kind
It's
of why
going to require more fiber in the dirt over time because more communication. We don't know anything faster than light at this point. That's the basics behind it. But I think we're going to see a bigger dependence on it. I think we might see how it shifts a little bit, but fiber's going nowhere. And it's, if anything, it's just ramping up more as we're seeing the federal funding and all the other projects that are coming down the line.
because of industry need or consumer need.
I haven't been able to chat much because I'm on the other end, but listening in, this is kind of my expertise. And I was on the OBAC for the broadband for Oregon. Fiber is not going away. Greg, you did a great explaining that, but all we're going to have is more doubling down. So the conduit there is what's going to be a value. Adding more fiber is what we're going to be doing over time. And I want to be quick because we want to get through all this, but all 5G, all your 5G stuff takes fiber and a lot more of it. And that's where the future is. But they have to have the fiber going down to all these poles along the road for that. And that's not going to come from the satellites, the latency and those type of things. So not to get technical, but I agree. And from, as you're an expert in insurance, this is my background. We're going to be laying a lot more fiber as time goes on. So I'm glad we have the conduit to pull it through. So.
Oh, thank you.
Can you access the
Done.
reverse through Starlink?
So the big part of what Rick talked about with the business plan, the master plan / business plan is to really look at those trade-offs. Because you're right, you don't want to end up with stranded assets. We talked about them earlier, where, you know, we build a line down to a one house solution that takes 40 years to pay back the investment. And that's part of the things that I think that plan starts by identifying targets. The other question, Tyler, once again, is why do we call this telecommunications instead of Sandy Net?
Subtitles.
What it was titled when it was created, and we just haven't updated it.
Rename it, since it's really an obsolete title for what it is.
Well, telecommunications 2.0.
That would work. But
Next time.
I mean, to be honest, because it's in just browsing through it, it pops a little better. Anyway, not just
I mean, we can
what it
absolutely
is.
adopt it with the Sandy Net name. We do the resolution.
Say we do. Okay.
You know, when Sandy Net was developed, it was built because the person that sat in Lori's seat on the council was told by Verizon that it was gonna take 6 months for him to get internet. And the council at that time decided that internet service was a mandatory service for a city to have, just like, you know, water, sewer, whatever.
Universal right, healthcare, is the internet.
Yeah, it was a mandatory need, and that's how it started. If they'd given him service right away, we might not have Sandy Net right now. So
I just want to highlight one more thing in Greg's budget. This is the first biennium that will not have any general revenue allocated to Sandy Net.
all right. Self-sufficient.
That's
Making
We love
progress.
self-sufficient.
I wish you had said that before I started.
Next time.
Next item.
Andy's just giving you a big goal right there. Let's see, 11 million. Next time.
We'll get right on that, yeah.
Tyler,
Good.
Yeah.
Good on questions. All right.
thank you very much.
Thank you, buddy. I think your shirt should say telecommunications.
It says Andy Net right now.
So next up is Jenny with all the utility funds. We'll start with the street fund on page 67.
I hear people want to take a 5-minute break or.
Can you get to the one thing in the next 13 minutes, or
No.
should we take a break now?
I'll tell you right now. no.
Okay, we're taking a break right now for 5
Not
minutes.
because you won't want to.
Yeah. We will start up at 7:45.
Right there.
Go ahead and reconvene, starting with the street fund.
All right, committee members, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Jenny Coker, the Public Works Director. Happy to be here tonight. And in the interest of time, I'm going to try and go quickly, similar to how Andy did. So real quick about Public Works. Today, we have 12.4 full-time employees, including about 5 contracted employees who run our water treatment plant and our wastewater treatment plant facility. And we're here tonight to talk first about street funds. So street fund repairs and maintains almost 45 centerline miles of streets. Costs include the power costs of street lighting and traffic signals. Our crew is responsible for painting, striping, traffic control, sign repair, right-of-way weed control. They're also out for snow and ice control for inclement weather. You'll see that as an overtime
pothole patching and street sweeping by contract. We also manage the pavement management system, which we just talked about at council. Essentially, we try to maintain the pavement condition index at a score of 80 or above. And that's for value of ratepayers. Basically, we're doing inexpensive repairs to keep those streets in good condition, to defer really large, big repairs or replacements. So sort of similar to your house, 1 to 2% a year is kind of what we strive for. And we just got a contract out for doing that next summer. I'm sorry, this summer, July, next fiscal year.
Do we prioritize high traffic areas for maintenance? Roads that get, I mean, all our roads we want to be kept at that, but like Bluff Road and some other roads that are, well-traveled. Is there any preference, any priority given to high volume traffic areas?
I think so. It's from a 5-year annual report that every year is customized by an engineer. And I know Ryan and our other people go out. So it is customized. I know south of 362nd was in poor condition. Moving on, the big thing that's dominated the street fund the last few years is the big expansion of 362nd and Bell, which came in over budget compared to what was in the fund. And we've managed to get through it. Our bids went to a local contractor, but as a result, I think it's summarized here, we did have to take all of the excess from the operations fund to help get through that project. Most of that project will be completed in terms of cash flow by June. The construction project is planned for completion at the end of August. However, there are some requirements with the permit for DSL Pond. We're still in the process of settling some right-of-way acquisition. So there's going to be some elements of that will trickle through this next biennium before we settle it. For what we're looking at here, our total resources for this past biennium were about 12.9 million, and we are our requirements match those exactly, mostly for just managing the cash flow of 362nd and Bell. You'll see the proposed budget next year is much smaller because we've depleted a lot of what we've accumulated in the operations fund. The resources go down to 7.2 million, and those are matched in the proposed budget for the requirements the following year. If I can, I'm going to gloss over some of the accomplishments. I will say, and it's really interesting sitting and talking with Kelly. I do think the street utility is the most visible utility to all the Sandy residents. And I'm at many of the council meetings, and every single council meeting, a councilor is pointing out a trail crossing that's dangerous, a speed study. I mean, Sandy's grown quickly, and the road and the street and the traffic has lagged, and we know that. And so I think we're really excited with the completion of the TSP that Kelly led for us. Our goals are to adopt the transportation system plan, to complete speed limit studies for Bluff Road and Highway 211, as well as study the intersection of pedestrian safety improvements to DeBarco Road. And we also want to look at replenishing the street fund to support future maintenance activities, as well as complete 362nd and Bell. One of the things we've also talked about is that not this biennium, but soon we are going to need to look at other sources of revenue. ODOT often gives us, there's a conversion of funds for the state block transportation grant. This last biennium, we got $300,000, which was put towards 362nd and Bell. However, they would not commit to any number for next year. I think they're refocusing those funds for ADA improvements. So we don't have any of those in the budget. And also, we do well as a stop for the gateway of Mount Hood with the vehicle tax at, I think it's 2 pennies per gallon. However, with the move to electrification, there is a gap currently, and we're not currently able to keep up with the PCI index. So we're not doing as many pavement maintenance projects as we should, which we pointed out to council in the last meeting. However, there are some bright spots. David Snyder from Economic Development connected me with a woman named Juliet Hyams, and she does grant writing for communities like ours, rural communities that need help. And she was very confident she could get us a pavement grant for at least 250,000. We also wanted to relook at the raise grant we applied for, but didn't get when we were worried about the price of 362nd and Bell. So I feel like there's some opportunities there, and I do feel optimistic about getting some more grants in, but they are not shown here at this time. But all of those are just exactly what we need to start moving on some of these goals that are coming out of the TSP. So that's not reflected in here, but we are working on that. I have several meetings with her set up.
So Jenny, in addition to that, though,
Yeah.
I mean, the problem of the good old gas tax, this isn't a Sandy problem, this is a national issue.
It is.
So what are we doing though? Or do we have plans to kind of look at our revenue streams holistically and look around the nation for best practices on how different municipalities are addressing this and eventually kind of propose that at a work session? It doesn't have to be the next couple of months, but like, are there plans of kind of looking at our revenue streams and thinking through how we can better adapt?
I would like to do it. It needs to be done. We have examples from other neighboring cities. It's just, we have so many.
Can we recoup from charging stations?
Well, I guess that's what to Stan's point, because I was gonna ask that very same question. But it's kind of like, have you heard, or is there any talk of ways to capture that loss in revenue, you know, that through the electric cars? Like, have you heard of anybody trying to tax that at some capacity? I don't like to use the word tax, I don't know about taxing people, but you know, some way to recoup the loss in revenue from the.
Because they're still impacting the roads.
They are, yeah.
They are. I have not yet, and this is why it's really important that we're attending conferences, but or get a grant to do studies such as this, because this is coming.
1226.
Well, it's a good focus for the council to look at ways to offset that loss in gas tax.
And we do have other programs we've taken over, such as the streetlights. We now own, I think, 1,100 streetlights, but we don't
Which is
have.
where we used to use our money from the ODOT.
But that requires us to have contract services for an electrician when lights go out there. So again, we do need a source of funds to manage those.
And you, just a quick question. I didn't see in the goals or whatever, for the advanced reimbursement financing agreement, whatever, I don't know exactly what the initials are. What's it called? Yeah, reimbursement agreement.
Yeah, I didn't really want to talk about that right now. But it's a plan.
Reimbursement, some other funding sources, that's, I'm confused.
I do have a draft of that ready to go, but it's not the time to bring it to council yet, but that is the plan.
It's a non-budget committee topic. I think that's
It's
what
a
you're
council
saying.
No, it's not, there's, yeah. There's certain things that need to be secured before I would bring them to council, so. But that is the plan. We do want to replenish the street fund. Yeah, exactly. I think I can guess at some of your questions. We have certain areas that have jumped up quite a lot. And if I may, I'd like to move ahead to address those. One of the largest jumps you're going to see is the contractual services. Last year's budget was $350,000 for the biennium. This year, we're projecting to come in at $512,000, and that is our contracted out street sweeping services. The charges have exceeded due to wearing parts, labor, as well as fuel. I do think Jordan mentioned there was a publication that went out that Portland PBOT was going to stop the street sweeping services because of this. So this is what we're doing. I did put in a budget with these quotes to maintain the same level of services. We're experimenting with skipping a month, certain months, to see how we do. We pay for time and volume, so it may not be a one-to-one savings, We're also putting out an RFP to see if we can get more competition, see if we can get something cheaper. And last year, we had started looking into buying a street sweeper and running those services ourselves. That would require capital outlay. It would take more labor in-house. But for these kind of prices, these are things we will look into and we'll come back with the recommendations. So this is
It's like,
a
I mean, what would a
conservative
street
budget.
sweeper cost?
$500,000.
Well, that's what I figured, but at 800,000, I mean, maybe
These-
double that?
Thomas looked into these last year and
It's okay, you know, yeah, it's okay.
But I-
expect you, I expect you to know.
we're spread so thin right now, running a stress test, standard hawk down, but this. We have plans to address this because we,
As a personally, I'm glad for these street sweepers, especially right after a snow or ice event,
that's exactly
because
why.
then there's gravel everywhere.
Yeah.
It's nice to have it picked up.
The other thing is our supplies have increased and that's just based on what we've been actually spending. That's for cold patch signs, poles. I know the crossing that went in on Bluff that was requested, that came in at less than we thought. So we take the safety concerns very seriously, and if at all possible, we try to accommodate them. So, but that's where the money comes from. The other thing you'll notice, there's been a little bit of shifting of who's allocated where between the 4 different utility funds. For a while, it was just easier to allocate some people equally across all funds, but the stormwater fund does kind of have structural problems, and street is a little lighter as well. So some people have been like, we don't get so many questions about street or stormwater charges, but like our billing clerks or Nancy, some of the other administrative support staff have been reallocated a little bit heavier on the water and sewer funds, because that's where a lot more of the questions come from. Are there any questions? I'm sure there are probably some.
Yeah, I had 2, they're both declines in the budget amount. The one was for sidewalks, bike path improvements, it was 30,000, then 2,000, then 50,000, and then this biennium, it's only budgeted for 10, so I'm like, are we not using money to do that? And then the second line was major repairs and maintenance was 70,000 2 bienniums ago, and then budgeted at 150,000 this past biennium. It's dropped back down to 70, and I was just wondering why the 2 reductions were.
So I do think the bike paths and sidewalks were sort of placeholder numbers that we hadn't been using. And I know that when we were trying to figure out the cash flow for 362nd and Bell, that was one of the funds that we were able to reserve to help pay for 362nd and Bell. And we also deferred the street paving projects that we had planned to put out to bid last summer. They're a little bit connected. So the second one, I can get into my. I have little notes. What was it? It was for.
Major repairs and maintenance. It was cut in half from the last biennium. More in line with 2 bienniums ago, but I didn't think the costs were going down.
Probably something that was done in the last one that's not being done in this one.
We have. I'd love to get back to you on this question. What I'm guessing is our fleet is very old. Some of our equipment is from the 70s, so it's rebuilding engines or motors. Items such as that, I think, is what's coming. What that is.
It went down though.
That 150,000 that was budgeted,
That was
this
last year when
biennium,
we
we're
fixed them.
only expecting to spend about $2,000 in that area. Again, to Jenny's point, we reallocated a lot of line items
To
to
the
offset the
362nd.
additional cost, 362nd.
Yeah.
And so I think that 70,000 is just sort of a,
Make up
you
what was
know,
taken away.
a
not
biennium ago is what we spent. That looks reasonable. We don't have,
Yeah.
you know, an exhaustive
Historical
list
stuff.
of projects.
It was an anomaly on the
Yeah,
page, so I
yep.
wanted to ask about it.
Sure. Reliable. Okay, Don,
If you know, what do you think the final total is going to be on Bell Street? And how much of that is covered from this fund? I mean, I see what's proposed for this coming by name. I just want to know, I know the number of increases and things. And if you don't have an exact, just something close.
I can get the number if I have to dig through the files, so I can get that to you.
Different than the 1.5 million this year?
So
That's
there
what's
are,
coming up.
there are portions of 362nd and Bell where the water fund paid for some water line that went in. And when the previous public works director was trying to, when the price increases came up, he had planned for the stormwater fund to pay for some stormwater line that was going to go in. But none of those transfers had occurred. And then we had the Tupper Road collapse. So the stormwater fund that didn't have money for it. So both the water and the sewer fund have contributed. And we are getting, or it's proposed to get some money from the general fund from of the remaining ARPA money to help. We did not take any money from the stormwater fund. And I can dig through and get you those numbers, but it might.
Well, I can
follow
up, right?
I can follow up.
Yeah,
I'm
I just
happy
curious,
to do that.
was it a $5 million, $10 million project? That's what I was trying to, what was the total scope? Because it started before I got here, so.
I think the total scope, I think it's around 13 million.
That's what
Yeah.
makes
Yep.
it.
12.3, close to what you guys
Yeah, which is about 2 more than what we thought
Okay,
at the beginning.
that's what I want, no follow-up.
We have a tentative settlement with the last owner of the right of way that we haven't acquired, but there are contingencies upon access and paving. So these land use things take some time. We also discovered one of the owners, there were some easements that were agreed upon 20 years ago that have been accumulating interest, and we're trying to settle out. There's just a lot of these things that have just been discovered. So it's
Messy.
well, it's just, these are some unplanned things, but they're really important to tidy up as people move away, as they retire. So we're some of those have been put on.
Institutional memory starts to.
Well, you deal with generational land out there.
There are those things. So
It's also $2 million of our money that we put in, that, made that property much. Yeah, no, so it's a little bit disappointing to hear that. We still don't have these.
we finally have a tentative agreement, and it's taken over a year to get here. So yeah, we're getting there. And it really is my goal to wrap up everything by June, but I've learned that these lands,
I really hope you have it open in time. I think it'll make a big impact when the school year starts for the school and also for the fire department, having that additional north-south road with Bluff sometimes turns into a problem. It would be nice to have. It'll add to the circulation in the city, unlike other things that have been done recently. That north-south, an alternate route for north-south traffic would be great. So it'd be nice if it was open by the time the school starts.
that's the plan, and it's looking like that way.
Great, good luck in that.
Thank you.
Next.
Next is the water fund.
Most all of these funds are dedicated funds, so we're not gonna be really moving much money or doing, it's mainly just looking at priorities and budgeting items, so.
So total resources of the water fund, this biennium that's closing are about 5.3 million, and the proposed next biennium go up to $24.2 million. And the requirements match exactly. We're in a period of historic reinvestment. There are significant drivers, compliance drivers, which cut off a very important source of water in September of 2027. And especially with the pandemic and all the other projects the city's been doing, the city was a little bit late with the water project. We just finished the master plan, and we have been working diligently to make up time. We're about 2 years behind where we need to be. And so what you're seeing it is expensive and it's a large increase, but it's reflecting loans are coming in to start design, refurbishment, rehabilitation, which is currently going on at Alder Creek. At Sandercock Reservoir, there was a 12-foot hole basically found underneath it. So these are these kind of silent things that nobody knows about, but
Yeah.
this is going to be back online and fixed. So, but you're starting to see these reinvestments come in. The water fund and the wastewater fund are the ones where we are putting 3 additional staff to help. There is 1 project manager. My vision is it's shared between water and wastewater. Water and wastewater are going to start having, annual projects similar to the PCI maintenance project. We're going to be maintaining pipe and taking down reservoirs. These are parts of our agreement, but they're also going to have some time to manage some of these street studies as well. But the water and the wastewater fund are where that project manager is split. And then we also have an additional utility worker for our water system. And then we also have a wastewater supervisor position to supervise. When the consent decree becomes public, there are additional operation and maintenance requirements we're required to do every year, just to make sure there's no backsliding. We keep our pipes really tight, keep the rainwater out.
The DEQ pays for it, right?
Well, they're giving us another $2 million grant, but we're on waste, we're on water, so. I think if we want to skip to the budget details.
Can I just have one question?
Of course,
Is that,
of course.
I mean, because Veolia or whatever used to do it, is that in addition to Veolia or?
It's an addition, yes. It's city staff.
Right. And is that to kind of help supervise the Veolia stuff? Because.
No, it's
all right.
I've done some initial comparisons of where Sandy is compared to other surrounding municipalities.
Oh, yeah.
And comparisons, they're challenging because, it depends on your level of service, it depends on your programs. Our water group in particular is really understaffed compared to how complex it is. Because not only do we have Portland water that we have to take and manage and blend and negotiate, we have a whole treatment plant to run and all the permitting as well as the groundwater. There are cities that have 3 times as much staff who only get Portland water, and
They're
they're about
flatlanders.
2/3
We're a
our size.
hill. What? I said, they're flatlanders. We live on a hill. Nowhere you go, can you ride a bike on a flat piece of land unless you're down a Tickle Creek Trail, so.
I think what committee member Pete Sold has said is as we've grown, as we hit 10,000, we're 13,000 now, there's additional requirements that are put on top of us.
He definitely doesn't have increases in staffing.
No, and this last year, there were a lot of surprises. One of the things we're embarking on, and I think this came from Detroit, but we and every other water provider has to inventory every single service line in every single house, and we have to get proof, whether it's lead containing, copper, PEX, PVC, and we have to provide this list October of 24 or get in trouble. And I mean, this was another surprise, but it's one of these things that we're doing most of the work in-house. So it's just being able to take on these projects. They also really weren't planned for and not in the budget either. So, I mean, we're spread really thin right now, managing all these additional loans that are coming in as well. So.
So do you want to talk about the exciting part, the increased revenue?
Sure.
Oh, you sound so excited.
Yeah, yeah. It's a political killer.
So
Most people like to drink.
I'm a brandy man.
Well, I meant water.
Yeah.
I meant brandy.
There's water in Brady.
Much easier to drink brandy.
the rate increases, it's 36. The rate increase includes a 36% rate increase for the next fiscal year, as well as the following fiscal year. But I'll give you a caveat. This rate increase is what we forecasted when the master plan numbers were coming in last spring. We've just started going through the new rate increases. We're just defining this project, we're just getting the loans in, and this doesn't reflect any grants that may come in either. So the only real certainty we have is this next year coming in July.
But we're budgeting for the worst case here. in the
We are.
proposed budget.
We
You
are.
say 36% this fiscal year and then another 36%? No, that's right.
So does that include our knowledge about what city of Portland's gonna charge us? 'Cause I really
does.
don't like,
It does.
what it is. So you're assuming the worst case, right?
Same.
So we could be less than 36.
We could, we are very preliminary in the water projections. We've just finished the master plan. We're just getting organized. We don't have any grants in.
We're doing that. That's all right.
Wow.
Soon.
I think next week.
Okay.
What was that?
Just for the record,
I just asked if we could get some water and public works updates. in the agenda.
On rates.
He said it's
On rates.
yeah, the committee, we just got our update this afternoon earlier on fresh water. It's our first one, so.
So the public will find out. Well, again, it's, we have
The
to,
budget?
since we don't have any of the grants and we're up for 14.7 million, I wouldn't want to, when we find,
Welcome to my day tomorrow.
huh?
I'm there, I'm in Salem tomorrow. getting
Yeah,
our test.
But I mean, if we kind of get the news on that here pretty quick, that's gonna change those
rates.
numbers greatly, so.
But in the budget, that's what's budgeted.
Right.
We won't know till mid-June.
The rate projections are always conservative because you don't know
Conservative large.
For the budget.
for the budget.
And then when we come to council for actual rate increase, it'll be based on more accurate numbers about.
When you have the grants and the funding to make it down to 25%.
It's not gonna be cheap. I
No.
mean, it's,
No.
yeah.
And we continue to refine those rate models on a regular basis as we get additional information. So when we get word that we did get a grant or, the project kicks off and we can reduce that contingency that's built into the rate model because we have some better ideas on the cost.
So give us the bad news up front now, and then the good news will come after. Kind of goes down and
Yeah.
works his
Works
magic.
magic.
So I will say there was a large increase that the council did last July. And that increase has enabled me to get everything done I have this year. Because we have stockpiled a reserve. I have started our program manager without getting the loan. We've been awarded the loan, but we don't have those proceeds coming in yet. So, and these kind of, the excess we have from those that we've been banking allowed us to basically pay for Sandercock while we were waiting for that loan to come in. Without those reserves, I wouldn't have been able to manage these. And when you're talking about an emergency failure, it's 5 times as much as just fixing it as it is. So I have to say, like, it's made all the difference.
And we're 2 years behind, as you said, in
2
terms
years
of where we
behind.
should have been, so
So, yeah.
we're at 2006/7, it's 2006 for testing, 2007 for go live. Is not shifting unless their project goes way late. We have to make those dates, so.
Then we do stormwater? Or are we done with water? Any more questions on water? Is it stormwater next?
Wastewater.
Wastewater, well, I thought we combined those two just now.
There's a couple more highlights we gotta go over.
In the-
This one is too important.
Where the water meets the river.
All right. So currently we have 3.4 full-time employees dedicated to wastewater. And in the 2023-25 proposed budget, that's increasing to 5.28. Our resources for this current biennium are 29.3 million, and that's staying steady. The next proposed biennium at 30.9 million. And the requirements match those. And this is just reflecting, we have a lot of loan money and grants coming in and we're spending it because we're under regulatory pressure to meet deadlines and get things done very quickly. And we are. It's pretty much the summary there. This includes the rate increase from last year, and the wastewater rate increases are proposed to be 16% for the next 2 years in the biennium.
I'm not arguing this, but I'm just questioning, why do we have so much as a beginning balance? If we're spending all this money on projects, and we got almost 5 million we're carrying in the biennium.
Part of it reflects building up a balance because our loans are reimbursement based. So, you know, we have to spend 5 million and then we get reimbursed for it 3-4 months later. So
It's just the timing then of
it
And
is,
then when
it's
it
the
drops.
cash flow.
The point is, some of these loans require us to raise rates before we even qualify for the loans as well.
Yeah, when you get hit with debt service payments in a future fiscal year, you want to ramp up to those rates because you can't obviously increase rates by 200% and collect that revenue in the same year that your debt service goes from 3 million to 7 million or whatever.
I like money in that account. I just was wondering how so much of it went forward when I knew we were spending so much on the backside. So
I can also point out there are some large areas of increase. I'm sure Chris has noticed, so I'm trying to beat him to it. One of our line items is for chemicals. It's increasing from $70,000 to $668,000. I'm sure everybody noticed that. We're working on getting RFPs, but the short answer of this is we made changes to the treatment process at the treatment plant that require more chemicals so that we can process more waste. We won't always be operating in the mode we are now, but I wanted to make sure we were covered for this line item, but just like the contractual services for street sweeping, this is an area that we're going to target and try and move down. And it's probably too much detail, but normally you run the process so that you do this naturally, but it takes up space. By adding in the chemicals, it allows us to increase the treatment capacity to handle more ERUs, is what's going on here. Another piece are contractual services increased from 50,000 to 250,000. One of our requirements is to CCTV inspect the remaining 6 basins in our collection basin by 2025, and those are contracted out. So that's that charge. There's a contractual service for waste hauling that's $336,000. Before that was kind of hidden under a different name. There's lots of opportunities for how we process our solids, turn it into fertilizer. So I'd certainly like to look at getting that number down.
Didn't we used to contract with some of the nurseries around here to spread it on there? Do that?
Well, no, not the fertilizer. I thought you were talking about a recycled water program.
No,
No, unfortunately, I learned our previous operator let those contracts expire and they were taken over by another city.
It's serious.
Yeah.
What did that result in? What are we doing with that?
what are we doing?
It's all going to,
Yeah, they go to the landfill. So this is, it's an expensive option and this is something that will be highlighted in the new facility plan amendment. It's just it's an inexpensive way.
And a great backyard and a house on Lansing. You should just dump it.
all of it? All of it. It's not your backyard. It's your backyard. There'll be consequences.
Call it art. Yeah, art. It's art.
Well, I have a better place for it than my backyard.
What city took that from us?
Crushing.
Oh.
So they took over.
That
our
hurts,
city.
that hurts.
No, that's a recycled
That's
water.
recycled water.
Schmitz and.
This is for solid waste.
Schmitz Solid waste.
Well, there's a lot more.
I have a plan to work on that. So I'm on it. I'm on
In
it.
their defense, Gresham has a lot more solid waste than Sandy does.
It's still too much.
I'm going quickly. Are there other
Okay.
questions? I'm sure.
No.
I just had one. As a newer city council member,
course.
Do you have what you need to get this done? Because as a city councilor and as a citizen, with children, I'm really concerned about our water and wastewater projects. And I was unaware of them until I got elected for the most part, which was my own fault, because I was on planning commission for 5 months. And I listen to you every council meeting, give us a story, and I feel the stress in your head. And I want to make sure that you have everything you need to get what you need done in the next biennium. And I know you have limitations around that. So are you asking for enough here, or do you need more?
I really appreciate you saying that. It's the city administrator side and the council are so supportive, and that makes such a difference. Like other councils in other cities would really block what we're doing. It's a lot, and some things haven't been done before, and we have to try and rewrite rules, but you know, we're doing the best we can. We still are a bit short staff. I think that when I do my comparisons, I think we should be around 23 or 24. And with this, we increased to have the number here, 15.7. But it's 3 more people is a great start. We don't exactly have the space for them, and it's 3 more than I had, and we're gonna get through it. One of the things is we're attractive, our problems are interesting, and the local people, consultants really care, and so they want to work for us. So as long as I create those environments, and I talked to someone I really admire at Edmonds, Washington. Edmonds is a pretty wealthy community, but they can't pay or compete with King County or Seattle Public Utilities. But their strategy is a lot of people want to work for them because their focus of workforce development. So these amazing people come, they stay for a few years, and then they move on to these higher paid other utilities, but they get really great productivity out of them. So when you see this emphasis on conferences, that's kind of my strategy here too, you know, and I think it's working. So I'm doing the best I can, but I mean, there's limits. The budget has to balance. I mean, these are big rate increases for everybody. So thank you. I'm really trying to do my best. And honestly, we're making a lot of progress with water. I feel like the sewer system, I know people don't want to hear about this, and I get it. It's mature, it's rolling. Like I can't tell you how happy I'm gonna be not to meet with EPA 4 times a month.
Excellent.
But we still don't know where we're going.
Well,
We still don't have, this thing is not over until we have a new facility online.
Yep.
And we still don't know what that facility is and when it's going up.
but we're gonna have those answers.
Current situations.
I understand, but
We're gonna train.
Do one thing at a time.
Where we really need to make progress is water.
Yes.
Our system is fragile. It's more fragile than it should be, and it does keep me up at night sometimes. Sander Cup being fixed will be huge. We're working on getting the second half of Alder working. That'll be another relief. And yeah, we have to get something built in 4 years. And so we have to move quickly, and we will. So I know this 36% rate increase, I know it's a big ask, but that's what we need to do this, because the future is not pretty in 4 years if we don't secure that second water source.
Jane
It's
has
just
a
hard.
question. I just have a comment. I think you're doing an excellent job, and you're making up for 20 years of disinvestment in a system that should have been built over the years. So you're really playing catch up, and I admire how you're doing it. Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
DEQ interest, that's a sizable jump. What is that?
Sorry. What?
Interest?
That must be on the
Page
line.
92.
It's interest on one of the DEQ loans that we have. So that probably the larger $1 million.
There was a payment.
Okay.
The payment starts in part of the next biennium. We pay twice a year, so I had a note on that.
There's almost $500,000 improvement, right?
Yeah, I think there was only one debt service payment in this biennium.
That's
And
it.
then next biennium. we had two.
I think we just barely started accessing that one.
Kathleen?
And those numbers are just gonna continue to grow with all of the other wells.
It's like
that
we
we
get all
have.
this money, but then.
Yeah.
No, my question, and I echo what, Commissioner said, but I, again, just making sure we're increasing our, workforce and all that, and I just want to make sure that we're also, you know, you have some funding in here to expand office space for them and, you know, all that facility stuff that down at World Headquarters that you need. Because that takes some money, because I know transit has a lot of money, but you know, if you kind of want the space, you have to pay for it. And I just want to make sure that you've budgeted to provide that space for your employees.
I'm
expanding.
I'm so
workforce.
glad you asked.
Yeah.
So two of my supervisors who basically do desk jobs and basically manage the quality of our water, they work in the lunchroom on a table. I don't have proper facilities for them, so I do have budget allocated to do some remodeling, some minor remodeling of where we store records and things like that, but I can easily turn that into 2 office spaces. I also, we're just squeezed for space as it is, and I'm trying to be practical. Kelly has worked with me. There's also some plans to bring in a temporary office trailer, you know, like a double wide with some offices and some meeting room space. That's in there too, because we just,
Yes.
every single penny is going into
The temporary.
the
buildings is
facilities, the
like-
pump stations. There's no big lovely building for us. I wish there was, but I don't know how we're gonna do that. So I'm doing minor things right now, and I have that because that's important too, but we're trying to be very, very frugal with that. It's,
Yeah, I do feel frustrated that we're expanding so much down there for the transit, and yet our water and wastewater and all our sandy facilities are having to bring in temporary, you know, that doesn't sound right, but.
The one has
Struggle.
money.
I struggle when we have a building that has empty rooms in it. Over at the bunker. We have one floor, half of one floor that's occupied in the building, and the fact that we have people sitting in the lunchroom doesn't make any sense at all.
And we have good computer sandy net out here, make them communicate from there over to the operations center.
Well, I just wanted to make sure,
Council.
if you needed more money that way to help get yourself more space at that. You know, as long as they're adding on to a building, make it another, you know, 200 square feet or whatever to get you the space you need, rather than having to pay for temporary buildings every year.
We have it on our organizational goals now, the summit about staffing and space needs. Obviously, it's a council goal for sustainable staffing plan. We do have some space needs that are pretty significant. The bunker building is an asset. One of the things that's part of the equation, though, is you don't want to separate work units. There's pros and cons of remote work, but when you have certain types of work that benefits from being around others that are doing that work, there's some synergies there. And so you want to make sure you have as much of those departmental and vision units together in the same space. So we have to go through.
I
know.
I have a strong disagreement with you on that particular item, and I think when we talk about bringing a trailer and you have an empty building, we need to adjust priorities.
But empty building does have some needs to it.
No question. Trailers aren't free.
It should be a calculation of empty trailers, cost, facilities, all the things that go with that, compared to developing the cost.
I'm not saying bunker building is not something that we can use. It's just making the right choices on what staff would be going over to, auxiliary buildings. as opposed to-
Regardless.
Especially new.
We have people living
You
in
guys, regardless, this needs so much more conversation and thought than what we're gonna be able to do. Right, we really need to talk about our facilities holistically and figure out where we're going there. And that should be a goal, should be a priority.
I mean, I just gotta confirm, we do not have any trailers in the current proposed budget, correct?
No. Another thing, how many trailers be? How many times do you put a trailer in and it goes away? It never goes away. They put in temporary trailers at my high school back 50 years ago. They are now permanent buildings. They've been there for 50 years. the temporary buildings at the high school, it's now Cedar Ridge Middle School, are permanent temporary buildings. You know, they're not gonna be temporary, they'd be permanent if you put a trailer in. Unless someone can cite a temporary building that went in and it got taken away.
I'm a hard ass, so we'll come out.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to come up with
Yeah, no,
practical
I-
solutions, so it's, I hear you, I have money in for a minor remodel to create 3 or 4 more desk spaces. There's space at the front of the ops. It's a beautiful building, so I want that to be done properly, and I think a remodel like that is probably $100,000 by the time you pay an architect. It's just, it is, so we don't have that.
And they're working with Andy on that, so.
We are, and she's excited too.
We would have limitations around how long.
Okay.
And I would enforce.
Okay.
I believe him. Kelly and I are good friends, and I know what that means, so.
Well, thank you. I echo what the others have said about you doing a great job.
I have a lot of support, I really do. We have the most amazing team here.
Tyler, what's next?
Yes.
Stormwater, right?
Stormwater.
The stormwater, you see an increase from the 2020, from the 21-23 budget of about $940,000 for total resources. And total requirements match that exactly, but our fund had a structural problem this year. Mostly because the 350, the 5, which we increased to $5 a month, was insufficient to maintain the system. We did have the sinkhole in the street that was repaired in 10 days. We did get a loan from, we have low interest loans for wastewater, so the contractor paid for that. There's an interfund loan, but you're going to see the proposed budget increase to start paying back those funds. We also took a really hard look at how our staff was allocated, and you're actually going to see a reduction. So from 21-23, there were 2.35 staff, now that's 2.18. We just reallocated people to some other funds where they spend more of their time. Our stormwater requirements are growing. We're subject to the Willamette River Basin as well as the Sandy. We have a 5-year update. We have mercury, education and programs to remove these TMDLs. So it is something that does require more attention. We do have proposed budget increases of $5 a month, going to $8 a month, and then going to $10 a month. And this is needed to pay for the debt service for the repayment of the fix, as well as to start accumulating some funds so we look good, so we can qualify for a loan. I also allocated some funds for some CCTV. I don't know the state or condition of the rest of the stormwater system, and I want to be able to identify anything before we have another failure. So I do have some money in there for that as well.
Preventive.
Yes.
Is that the 120 professional services?
It is, and Jordan tried to like hold me back, but I was like, maybe we can start the stormwater master plan towards the end of the year. But we'll see. I mean, this new contact of mine, I'm hoping maybe I could get a grant for a study, in which case we could go a little sooner. So
I think we need to leave that in there. I think it's important that we start looking at what our stormwater is. And I'm the last person who wants to increase taxes, but $3 a month rate increase, is that going to be enough?
What's the percentage?
That's
6.
no, that's
It's a flat fee.
it's a flat fee.
Don't forget about our
And
previous
$2.
conversation about 70%.
Yeah, it's on top of everything else.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we're
You understand.
Increasing it
Only
over
do so much.
100%.
So I think it's real important.
we just went through 16 for the next 2 years, and I know we're going to get 70 before that. Before that one. So now we got $5, which stormwater is just about as difficult. I don't want to do in stormwater what we've had to do and look to work up with our wastewater. It's really important that we still move forward on some of these projects. I just want to confirm that we're on the right track for that. That may, master plan, you say, is not in the budget, but hopefully you get a grant for that. Okay.
I just want to say, when it comes to stormwater, our starting point for this was noise on the bill. So the fact that it's 100% or 200% or 300% is really irrelevant because it started at such a low number, the percentage skews the reality of how much it's actually going up, which is probably why you put real dollars on it for this.
Except it's on the same bill, but you're going up by 36.
Yeah, but 36% off of a $50 bill versus 100% off a $2 bill is a big difference.
It hides it,
That's-
it hides it well.
It's not meant to hide it, it's just trying to explain,
Right.
don't get hung up on the percentage.
I'm
This-
not-
This fund is not you personally.
I'm not disputing its
Carl.
necessity.
I am.
I'm not disputing
Okay.
its
Yeah.
necessity. It's needed.
Yeah.
Right here on my desk.
So is it enough? It's probably not enough, because once you do the CCTV and you find out all the other problems and you do the master plan, they'll probably have a major project, set of projects down there.
I
Until
just,
then.
again, I agree with Jordan on it. I'd like to slow our roll a little bit if it's gonna take a lot of staff time and resources to do a master plan. When we are in the middle of a housing moratorium and we still don't know where we're going long-term in wastewater, and I want an answer to that sooner than later. We're in the middle of a moratorium. So before, and they're all related, I understand, but we gotta also, we're at 15 employees when we need 24. We only have so many resources, and I just think when we set our priorities, we need to know where we're going with that, with the new facility online. Before, I understand the need for water, but it needs to be prioritized. It needs to really be heavily focused on before we start worrying too much about moving quickly on other master plans.
So in the budget, I think, want to confirm, we have CCTV,
Yes.
no master plan. Which is, so CCTV just gives us data by the end of 2 years.
Where we know
Will
what to do
probably
with the
let us know
master
how
plan.
important the master plan will be, that we can prioritize.
Yes.
It gives us existing condition.
Yes.
It's a justifying thing to be able to say, okay, this is why we need a master plan.
I just don't want us to be saying to ourselves in 2 years, oh my goodness, we should have been increasing the amount.
Yeah.
And we gotta go 100% or whatever that number is. So that I look like with the
Throw
wastewater.
my foot down, Carl.
Okay.
It's 820.
That was the intent of the $2 increase, another $2 increase, as we talked to council during goal setting, was to ramp up the revenue in the fund to be able to fund the master plan and future projects in the future, not just hold it at 0%. And run the same problem.
Okay.
It's not a big foot.
It's small,
But it's powerful.
Understand where it came from?
Rise someplace else.
Let's move on.
All right,
Thank you.
public comment.
Great job. Thank you.
So you've now all received presentations from each director and each department and fund, with the exception of urban renewal, which will be next week.
Here to provide public comment.
We'll just ask anyone online who wishes to give public comments, to please click the raise hand button. And Cheryl's give.
Any raised hands?
I do not see any raised hands. Cheryl.
So nobody jumped in after 3 hours from the very beginning to now to be able to raise their hand now. So we'll go ahead and close. And I guess we're looking for any comments or motions by the committee to adopt the 23-25.
Well, we still have $1 million we get to spend.
Yeah,
Well,
let's-
do we spend that before?
We're just
Chair.
making a motion, you want a motion to close the public hearing?
Close the public hearing, yes.
I'll make a motion.
Or public comment. Close, second, Catherine. So. Now, the money that I know we've heard in the various departments, that 965,000. I think we've had earmarks of people saying they wanted to do about 1.5 million. So we need to figure out.
Maybe higher than that.
We need to figure out what actually, and my caveat, at least, I would say, we're not spending anything of that 965 that's any kind of an ongoing expense. It's gotta be one-time things. Because we don't have it in the budget to give 30,000, and that's gonna be something that has to be spent every year. The next budget, they're gonna have to find a way to come up with that 30,000 or 130,000 or whatever.
Honestly, with all the stuff that we've got potentially coming down the pipe and all the unknowns, I'd be just fine with just holding on to it.
But you can't, isn't it ARPA money? It has to be, does it go away if we don't spend it, or does it go into?
We've
contingency?
already claimed it.
We've already
as general
claimed it, so we
revenue
can stick it
replacement.
in general revenue, added to the 2.5 million that's in there under contingency or under carryover.
So Chair, are you interested in going through tonight, the
I'd
list of
like to.
items and try to get to?
What I want to do is get through this
Resolution.
whole budget and adopt it and maybe delineate where some of that 965,000 might go, the part of it that doesn't stay in the general fund. And then the next meeting, we have a nice, easy meeting of doing the urban renewal budget, adopting that, and we'll be done. So I'd like to finish the city budget tonight if we can. But we only have a half an
But we
hour.
need to do that, right, Tyler?
We have 35 minutes.
We could punt to next week, but we need to wrap up next week from a timeline perspective.
Man, you are not as strong as you were when we were talking earlier.
Yeah, no, my goal was to get through all the presentations tonight. Which we
Yeah.
did.
Which we
I
did.
didn't want to have any of that later on.
Because you were like,
I mean,
Mayor.
we could,
We spoke.
you
Right,
could go
right,
home
yep.
and you could write down the things where you would like to have some of that spent, or if you would like it all to go, and you could each have your idea of where you want it to go. And we could tackle that at the beginning of the next meeting, like in the first hour. By the end of that hour, we decide where it's gonna go and we adopt the budget. And then we open up the urban renewal budget and we do that and finish it.
Makes more
Do
sense.
we have a master list of all the requests that weren't included in the
That's
budget that?
That'd be
We
nice
do.
if that could be
Give us-
distributed.
We've been keeping a running list
I've
of
got a
items that
running
have
list,
been.
yeah.
Mine's
I
just
asked-
hand notes, so I wanted to make sure. I
If
didn't
we
miss
could
anything.
compile the running list and have that given out to the community members so that they each come with their, you know. Don.
Finish your thought, but
Well, then everybody comes with their idea of how they'd like to see it spent, and we vote on each. I think we can get that done in an hour. Well, I think we can allot that 365 or that 965
you're
in
getting
an
to,
hour.
you're getting to the heart of my question, which isn't of what I want to see, but the process of how do we want to collectively come together? You know,
Well, what-
because yes, I can come in with my list and all of us can come in with our own list.
and we
but-
give that to Tyler and Tyler comes with the thing and we
But I guarantee
decide.
it won't add up and it
No,
won't
it
make
won't.
sense and it doesn't make have consensus. So is there a way for us to build some collaboration into that, some way to kind of decide where we have support for an item and where we maybe don't?
Kathleen?
or-
Well, like I had asked last meeting about the cost for making sure we can get the zoning plan map process started in this next biennium, and Kelly said he was gonna come back. Like, he answered me and said he couldn't come back by today, but he would have the estimates. So I feel like there's a little bit more information I need to kind of recommend something, but I would like to have is kind of clarity on, here's the wiggle room we have, here's where the wiggle money is, or the contingency, or the, whatever the extra money is that we have to spend. And then here's those known extra interested areas to spend it, that list. And I want to be able to kind of look at that and go, oh yeah, my priorities are these top 2 or 3 or whatever. But I don't have that in front of
So
me.
then you're aligning with what Linda's saying, which
Yeah.
is that a list gets sent
Yeah,
out.
we need,
Yeah,
so,
let's build the list.
so just real quick.
Mhm.
So Jordan, on the project list that you guys have been working on, Kathleen's question is in that. Okay, and then I'm assuming, okay, now I'm just gonna go through mine really quick. Sarah's bus is there. And then our Parks and Rec has put together.
Phase 2.
There's, one sec.
Different one.
But for the holiday, like my FDR electrification and lights and all that, they put together, there's something allocated for that.
A master plan for the stormwater. I mean, if you're gonna start listing them, I suspect we're gonna have a couple.
All
of
right,
million
well, now I
dollars.
know what I'm working against for the next week. Okay, and then Dawn, for the thing, you have a phase,
Yeah, I'd like to,
phase 2
I'd
plan.
like to see some additional money for the towards the phase 2 to supplement certain
Yeah.
urban renewal.
So I think we can get to 900,000 pretty
Oh,
fast.
I think we'll go way over.
Well, sure, but we only have so much. I think we're gonna get to a certain point and then allocate the rest of phase 2 to sit there. And I think we're all gonna walk out of here and be fine.
But is the SUR is the phase two the sewer money or you're thinking?
Sorry, my comment for this conversation right now was specific to the current budget, not the sewer budget. But the current
Okay, I was
budget.
getting confused.
So you'll hear me have a similar request in their renewal budget, but it'll be for different sub funds.
One thing I wanted to recognize, and I support Smallwood on this one, in that I think there ought to be some conversation about holding something in reserve, knowing that we have yet to do a project that has come on budget. There is yet to be something that we can say it came in under budget, and I suspect that we will have problems at the end of 2 years, big time. So I think one of the things that should be on this list is what do we hold back for? How much do we hold back? With an idea that there's gonna be a significant need coming down.
And in a dedicated fund, not just thrown back into
Well,
the
we already have-
bottom line.
We have a contingency already set up for
And
other
then,
things.
and then every department has one.
Everybody has, right,
Yeah.
but there's still, I think, there's gonna be some issues, you know, that something will come up.
Just think
I
about
know
all
there
the
will
things
be.
that have come up in the last 4 years,
We've yet to do a budget.
all of the things that have come up. And it would sure be nice to have some money to be able to say, hey, this is not a big deal, because here's where this.
So I guess we'll
It's the
discuss.
rainy day fund right there.
We have,
I'm not saying all
we
of it.
have a
We
rainy
have
day
2.5
fund, and we
million.
accepted
general
5%
fund.
contingency there. So I mean, yeah, I think there's some priorities. When the aquatics
I think
trips.
Jeremy wants to.
Do we have a budget for for aquatics that's gonna be in this package?
Yeah.
Seed money to get the aquatics.
We have it on the list.
It's on
We
the
have some
list.
questions of.
Yeah.
Does there need to be an actual allocation versus, because it could be revenue neutral. It's a program that if we charge people, it's gonna be covered by.
Let's get this list around and then to your point, we can talk about.
And can you clarify this electrification
I'm just-
SCR thing? I
My
don't quite have no idea.
concern, so my concern is like, if we, and I'm just throwing this number out.
Yeah.
Let's say we spend $100,000 more on Christmas lights. I'm gonna look like Griswold out there putting it together and the whole thing's gonna blow up because we don't have enough power out there to light them. So my point is, if we're growing the lights and stuff during the holiday festival, we better make sure that the park has the capacity of having enough electricity to light those lights. And that's all that is. I just want to make sure that, because
Yeah, I
And we
think that's
had-
better.
If BG is
We have-
You need a partner.
We had
Oh,
the,
yeah.
with the trail relocation and everything, that had electrical conduit in the, I have blueprints for all that
Tyler?
stuff, so.
Is it doable to come up with that list by say Wednesday or Tuesday? A Couple days prior to our
Yeah, I
meeting,
mean, Monday, I think, end of day.
that would be great, and then,
Can we commit to just that list, though? I mean, I can see us coming in on Thursday and saying, oh, we forgot A, B, town, 14. I think if we've got a list that we've kind of all talked about, that should be the list we work with,
Yes,
not new ones.
I haven't seen the list, so I can't commit to that.
and if you have something you think that Tyler might leave off the list, notify Tyler by Monday at noon, and he'll put it on the list.
So I got cut off when I was trying to make one of those ads.
Yes.
But for the actual IT telecommunications, not the Sandy net, we thought about giving him some more money so that he was not doing that report on himself. I'd make sure that's in the list.
You had one in there for
You did.
contingency for side room zoning. and stuff.
If we're gonna do this, I suspect it'll be a bunch of
That's a
lists.
separate. Oh, there's gonna be a gazillion.
yeah, but let's just see them and see how we prioritize.
Okay, sure.
And at the end of the
Since
night, we can't agree, we just gonna stick the whole 965,000 back in a rainy day fund and say that's gonna be paid for when we come up with a plan to
I
spend it.
Guarantee.
I think we'll get to majority on most of it. That'll be good enough, you know.
And then Chair, we do have.
We have a hand up, okay.
Yeah, no,
If you don't have.
no, Myra, say that we don't.
Hello,
Hello, a question. This is 965,000. Is that the ARPA dollars?
correct.
Doesn't that have to be spent by the end of 24?
I asked,
So we claimed all of our funds as general revenue replacement. And so we've freed up all of those funds to use for
whatever.
any city service. So we will be.
Oh, okay. You claimed them. Okay, got it. Thank you.
I hear what you're saying.
It's free to be used.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So do we have consensus on the fact that we're gonna get a list? We're gonna look at that list. If we think something's missing, we'll notify Tyler immediately so that he can add to the list. And then we'll spend the first hour at the next meeting figuring out how that's gonna be spent, and then we'll adopt the budget as amended.
I hate to throw a wrench on, I have a 90% chance I probably won't be at that meeting.
The next Thursday,
Well, then get your priorities numbered 1 through whatever.
I'll be here.
That's one of the challenges I have is I see that, I mean, for one, this has already went 2 weeks longer than we anticipated because we're not willing to kind of hash it out.
Well, we've never done a budget committee that I've been a part of in 2 weeks and had it be successful.
But we had 3 weeks, and now we're into week 4. And so we're going into week 5, right? I think that would count.
This is week.
This is our
Week
third
three,
week.
okay, so week 4. So we're
It should
still
be
done-
week 4, but
we're
we,
still longer than we anticipated.
Do like
so,
the county do for 4 days all day.
Yeah.
yeah, these have been 3-hour meetings.
Yeah, but I hear you. But I think we went this long, this many days last time too. I
I think a
we
lot of
might have
people
been
got
little
questioned. I think it
overambitious.
was a little quicker last time because we weren't in person. We were on Zoom. But
I thought it was 3 meetings.
it was 3, it wasn't 4. But I think we'll finish it next week successfully and we'll debate it up. And we'll do the- Now, are we gonna get the fire department and the chamber?
They'll be
That's
invited
Monday,
next
the
time.
I'm not Phil's babysitter.
I know, but it's the same night as the fire board.
Well, I hope there's a move to figure out who's gonna be the new person
I
sitting
think
on
he was
that
gonna
board.
get somebody to
Yes, he's
take
not
his
gonna be-
place. so
Well,
he
the
can be
way they
here.
decided it was, it would be Phil until he retires. Whatever, good or bad. Did he ever get in touch with you, Jordan?
Why would we do that?
They decide who they send.
Why would we decide that?
They're gonna use an elected official after, that's what they decided to do. I'm not supporting it.
The fire
I'm not-
board did?
Fire board
Oh,
said.
that's not right.
Phil would be there and Phil would be part of sewer.
Hold on, Carl, can you explain it just so I can hear it? Carl,
Hey,
Carl, what are you trying to communicate?
That the fire board said they would use Phil, want to use Phil as a sewer representative for the fire board until Phil retires. And then they would use an elected official after that.
You can keep talking, but this meeting's closed at 8:36. We'll see you next Thursday.
But they still have a